Welcome to the In Happier News podcast. This is a podcast for people who believe there is too much negativity in the media and would rather be uplifted by hearing about the good in the world and happier news instead. Each week, you can listen to a roundup of inspiring news stories in 10 minutes or less to elevate your mood. Plus, we have episodes like this one with inspirational people sharing their journeys, tips, and tricks. I'm your host, Deanne Goodman. Let's get started. Welcome, Roman Prokopchuk, to the show. I am so excited to really get to know you and hear about your story. And I want to start with your backstory. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I came to the United States when I was 5 in 1990 from Ukraine, which was a communist country at the time. I came here with 6 other family members. We stayed in a 2-bedroom apartment. It's kind of the immigrant journey, if you will. I had to learn English here.
Do you even remember what it was like when you were 5 years old trying to learn a new language and adapt to a very different culture, I'm sure?
I got made fun of, I guess, back in the 90s. I don't think bullying was as focused on. And at that point in 2nd grade, I learned English well enough where I didn't have an accent, because if someone learns another language before a certain age, they really don't carry over an accent based on how your brain is getting programmed. But oftentimes, if you hear someone that came here in their teens or their 20s, regardless if they were here 10, 20, 30 years, they retain that accent. Ended up going to college for criminal justice. And then when I graduated, I had an internship with the Secret Service. And I saw I didn't really want to do that kind of work based on the agents having to move every few years. There's no certainty in where you got placed. And basically, I applied to a lot of jobs at that time, government level jobs in 2007, 2008. And that's when the economy kind of tanked. So I was kind of down, a little depressed, because I was looking for months. No one was hiring. There was hiring freezes in, government roles. So I met a friend at the gym, and he said, I need someone to do digital marketing for my company. Take this packet. It was a packet explaining search engine optimization. Read up on this online as well and other digital marketing practices. And basically you can come on as a marketing analyst assistant. So I took about 2 months to learn digital marketing, and I kind of took it from there. Ended up founding my agency, Nova Zora Digital, in 2012. And I have a podcast called The Digital Savage Experience.
So you have a very unconventional way to get into digital marketing by just a chance almost that happened at the gym.
Yeah, I think I have a good work ethic that's instilled based on, kind of that immigrant journey. I know a lot of immigrants from Eastern Europe have a lot of businesses. There's a lot of obviously founders of big companies, like the co-founder of Google is from Ukraine. The co-founder of PayPal, which I ended up meeting, is also from Ukraine. So I think it's just kind of a work ethic in the environment you come from. So I think the person that spoke to me at the gym saw I had that and basically gave me a chance, and I ran with it.
That's awesome. Let's talk about being a foster parent. So tell me about why you and your wife decided to do that.
Well, we've been doing kind of the fertility thing for the past 2 years, and we actually experienced a few miscarriages. We're still trying naturally, but we figured it was a good road to go down. We're doing foster to adopt, so if the opportunity presents themselves and the children have their biological parents or guardians' rights terminated, we would be able to adopt them. Or if they're already in the system where the rights have been terminated. We became foster parents as of last day of May last year, and we got our first placement June 1st. So we have 2 boys. They're still with us, and if we had the opportunity, we would adopt them, but it looks like they're going to be going back to their biological mother, which we basically met and have a relationship with, because it's this thing called bridging the gap. You want to be as accommodating and be there for the biological parent if they're ready and they're kind of in the right state of mind and they have visitation. So we kind of worked on that, which is hard because we love the kids. We also had to do about 60 hours of training before being licensed, foster parents in New Jersey. They're called resource parents. And we had to home study done, a home visit, background check. So it was basically a 10-month process to even become licensed.
How old are the boys?
The younger one just turned 2, and the older one turned 3 as we got him last June. So he's going to be 4 in the end of June.
And they came together at the same time?
Yeah, that was actually the thing. So we wanted a younger child, an infant, one child. There's a hotline, and they go down a list. Whoever's a foster parent, a resource parent, your house is licensed for a certain amount of kids based on square footage, bedrooms, that kind of thing. So even though we said we want one child, our home is licensed for 4. We got a call, and it said we have a sibling group, 2 brothers. They were placed 2 weeks ago into a different county. The person they were placed with said they can't handle them, so they have to go out of county. And if we don't find anyone, they're going to split them up. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like somewhat of a guilt trip. So we didn't want them to split them up. And me and my wife talked about it kind of on the spot, because you have to make the decision within a few minutes, or else they go down the line. And we said, okay, let's do it. Let's try to figure it out. And it's been a blessing ever since.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, to go from 0 to 2 it's hard for me. I have a 16-month-old, and there are days where I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, we had 4 at one point. We had an emergency placement, a 4-year-old and a 10-month-old. So for about 4 days, a 4-day weekend, we had 4 boys, which was interesting.
Wow. So how do you prepare your heart for knowing that they're going to go back to their biological mom?
You can't really. There's times where you get super sad, or we have about 20 pictures on the fridge of us doing all kinds of stuff with them, going to Disney World, all over the country. I think they've done more things than most, kids their age, or a lot of adults. I mean, I know they've done more than I did at that age. So it's one of those things where you're not in control of what happens. The state dictates that, the caseworker, the judge. It's kind of heart-wrenching. I'm already kind of depressed about it, but me and my wife basically spoke about it, and let's enjoy the time we still have with them and not have it, be a sad time. Let it be like a joyous time and still spend time with them and build memories.
That's a really good attitude to have. And are you guys going to continue fostering after this?
We would like to. Hopefully they, their mom gets, her stuff together and ends up being, a good parent, and they're in a safe environment. But for any chance, if anything happens and they, for some reason, end up back in the system based on we almost taking care of them for a year, we would be the first person or first family they would call as well. So if we have, let's say, 2 children, foster kids at that time, and something happens, we would get the call, and then we would make the decision if we want, 4 kids, or what the best situation for that is.
So anything can really happen. But you guys are definitely open to continuing the journey as foster parents with the goal of getting a placement where it turns into an adoption.
Yeah. And it's sad, because a lot of the kids that are in the state, in terms of a termination of parental rights scenario, are handicapped kids with severe delays, kids with issues based on drug use of the parents, and older kids as well. So when older kids are in the system, people always want a baby or a toddler, because you can still influence a baby or a toddler a lot easier than, a teenager. And if that teenager ages out of the system, I think their percentage of ending up in jail, addicted to drugs, or, dead, or in a gang is like 50%, 75% higher than, your average child. So it's important. I think there's about 400,000 kids in the foster care system in the United States. And, a lot of them are situations. Not every home is like me and my wife's, a caring, loving home. There is a stipend associated, which is very small to take care of the kids. But some people manipulate the system. And if their house, has 6 or 7 kids, they'll take 6 or 7 kids just to get those stipends, and don't really show those kids love or affection or any kind of guidance.
It's so sad that happens. I did an episode about a great program called Urban Surf, and it takes foster kids surfing. And I learned a ton about foster kids through that interview. And that was the statistic he said was 50% when they age out right now are basically ending up in jail on drugs or worse. So I give you major kudos for what you're doing. I think that's amazing. You and your wife should be really proud of yourselves for that.
Thank you. Yeah, at some point I want to be like an advocate or, do something in terms of changing the laws, because the laws in New Jersey, at least, are reunification over anything. So if the parent shows some kind of progress, but the home still may not be the adequate place, like the foster home or another guardian is the best place, they'll choose reunification over that. So I think there's a lot of laws that are very archaic, and I think there's certain procedures and processes within the state organizations that are really broken that I would like to change. And with a platform like podcasting, either being on different podcasts or on my own or going to places and doing government things, I hope to change that at some point.
Yeah. From my outside perspective and from a perspective of being a mom, to me, it's like, if you can't take care of your child, you don't deserve your child. I know that sounds really harsh. I just look at couples like you and your wife and are so loving, and you're giving these kids trips to Disney World and this amazing life. And here's this path that they could go down, or they could potentially go down this completely different path and then end up being older in the foster care system and no one wants to adopt them. And it seems like it can be a fixed system, but there's no easy answer.
More positivity to come after this quick break.
Did you know I launched this podcast without spending a dime using an app called Anchor? Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. If you've always wanted to start a podcast, go to anchor.fm/start to learn more. What are some of your tips and tricks to staying so positive?
I mean, it's hard. I think everybody falls into some kind of negative mindset, but I think routine. So in the morning, I try to either pray or meditate, take some time for myself, always in the back listening to motivational stuff, and just trying to if I am in a rut, get my mind out of that rut, and then thinking also where I came from. At the time, it was, under communism. The economy is, subpar. There's corruption. There are other issues. So it was a hard environment, even though I was, a few years when I left. I remember things like standing in bread lines with my mom for, a few hours. So stuff like that happened. So I think it's the environment that you come from, and then seeing that everything's a blessing, and traveling to different places of the world, seeing how people live and, on what kind of salary and what they live on, that regardless of what you have, and, even people that are considered poor in the US, if you put it on a global perspective, are oftentimes very, very rich based on how other people are living in the world. So just kind of thinking, if you do have a problem, if it's fixable, and if it's, I say, a first world versus a third world problem. If you have clean water, food, shelter, health, you should be thankful, and everything else, if you take the right steps, should fall into place.
Travel. I think travel is such a key to go out and see and experience other cultures and kind of realize like your problems are so minuscule. Tell us a little bit about your podcast, the Digital Savage Experience podcast.
So at first I hesitated to get into podcasting, but I really wanted to do it for the last few years, and then I just kind of pulled the trigger. The first several episodes were about my experiences as a foster parent, different tactical digital marketing things, me speaking on specific events. So it was mainly me having the conversation. And probably a few months ago, I wanted to incorporate interviews, which has worked really well. Stories of, other people, what their journeys were to get to where they are, oftentimes filled with obstacles and struggles, and have people of, different professions, different walks of life, different ethnicities, just to show that if somebody made it that looks like you, they came from where you came from, you can make it as well.
That is great. And before we go, I want you to answer fill in the blank for these 3 sentences and just really whatever comes to your mind.
Sure.
So the first one is, love is.
Patient.
Positivity is.
I think positivity always wins.
And happiness is.
Family.
Do you want to elaborate on any of them?
I think positivity always wins because it's based on your mindset. And if you visualize things that are positive, it's going to change your mood. It's going to change your physical health and emotional health as well. And basically manifesting your goals and dreams. If you make a vision board or anything like that. So being intelligent and having a dream isn't enough. You need to have a plan and execute. If you don't execute, you're never going to get out of the situation you're in. If you don't execute and, on that kind of positive direction, 10 years from now, if you just think, okay, I wanted to do this, you're still going to be in the same situation you were in. And I think my family, which consists of, close friends as well, are an important tribe, and those people around you keep you sane and, motivated. And those are the people that you spend the most time with. So I think my family has gotten me through a lot. I've been there for my family as well.
Anything else you want to tell people that are listening? You
can reach out to me. I'll answer any kind of questions. Digital marketing. I've done a lot of pro bono stuff, especially on social. I throw things out. If you have a business, if you're thinking of starting a business, small brand, big brand, if you have a question, feel free to, reach out to me. I'll jump on a call. I just want to see people succeed.
Novazora Digital would be the best place for them to find you.
Yep. And if anyone has any questions and needs any information or thinking about being a foster parent, I'm glad to share my experiences further.
Awesome. All right, Roman, thank you so much for joining us and talking and being so open about your journey as a foster parent and your immigration story and how you're helping everyone with the marketing as well. So thank you very much.
It's great being on. Thanks for having me.
Feel free to connect at inhappiernews.com. And don't forget to put a nice rating and review because that helps others find this podcast. Thank you so much for helping spread positivity, and you'll get a whole new dose of it next week.